Well, let me tell you something straight. I'm 94 years old. I've been in this game since 1942. That's 83 years. I've seen wars, recessions, inflation, deflation, booms, and busts. And right now, in December 2025, I'm watching something I've never seen before. America is paying $1 trillion a year just on interest. Not on roads. Not on schools. On interest. The United States government now owes $36.2 trillion. Let me say that again. $36.2 trillion. And every single day we're adding more. Now, most people hear that number and tune out. It's too big. It's abstract. But here's what matters to you. In fiscal year 2025, we're spending over $1 trillion just to service this debt. That's more than we spend on the entire military. More than Medicare. We're paying interest with money we don't have, borrowed from countries that don't necessarily like us. Think about this like your household. Imagine you're spending more on credit card interest than on your mortgage. How long before the bank stops lending? How long before everything collapses? Here's the math that terrifies me. When I started investing, treasury rates were low. Today, the 10 years around 4.3%. Every percentage point increase costs us hundreds of billions. And rates are rising because lenders are getting nervous. Let me show you the death spiral. First, we borrow money. Then, we pay interest. But we don't have money for the interest, so we borrow more. That new debt has interest too. So, we borrow even more. Eventually, lenders say, no more. And that's when everything breaks. The Congressional Budget Office projects will hit $50 trillion by 2035. But honestly, we might not make it that long. The crisis is already here. It's just moving in slow motion. Let me tell you about someone real. Her name is Maria Rodriguez. She's 58, lives in Texas, worked as a teacher for 30 years. She's planning to retire at 65 and collect Social Security. But here's the brutal truth. The Social Security Trust Fund runs dry around 2033. That's only 8 years away. When that happens, benefits get automatically cut by 23%. Maria was expecting $2,400 a month. She'll get $1,848. That's $552 less every month. $6,624 a year. That's her car payment, her insurance, her medication. That's the difference between living and surviving. And this isn't some future problem. This is locked in. Unless Congress acts, and they won't because it's political suicide, millions of Americans like Maria are about to get crushed. Now let me tell you what nobody in Washington will say. Both parties did this. In 2017, we cut taxes without cutting spending, added $2 trillion to the debt. In 2020-2021, we spent $5 trillion on COVID. Some was necessary, a lot was waste. We borrowed every penny. Politicians love to talk about fiscal responsibility. Then, they vote for trillion-dollar bills and hope nobody's watching. Why? Because spending wins votes. Cutting spending loses elections. So they kick the can down the road and let your kids pay for it. I was calm in 2008 because it was a liquidity crisis. Banks were stuck, but the fundamentals were sound. This is different. This is structural rot. The foundation is cracking. Think of it like a business. If a company loses money every year and keeps borrowing to survive, eventually creditors walk away. The company dies. When that happens to a country, especially the country that prints the world's reserve currency, the consequences are apocalyptic. Some people say, Warren, just print more money. Problem solved. No. Printing money is inflation. It's a hidden tax that destroys savings. Look at the 1970s. Inflation hit 13%. A dollar in 1970 was worth 35 cents by 1980. Your grandparents' savings got cut in half. Here's the moral issue. This $36 trillion, it's not my debt. I'll be dead soon. This is your debt. Your children's debt. We're stealing from the future to fund today's consumption. That's not economics. That's theft. I think about my grandkids. They're going to inherit a country where 30% of every tax dollar goes to interest payments on debt they didn't create. They didn't vote for these spending bills. They didn't get the benefits, but they'll pay for it. That's immoral. Now, here's what Wall Street knows but won't say publicly. I have friends at major banks. They're quietly preparing for a scenario where U.S. debt becomes unmanageable, not in 30 years, in the next 5 to 10 years. Here's how it happens. First, foreign creditors. China, Japan, Saudi Arabia. They hold trillions in treasuries. If they stop buying or worse, start selling, interest rates spike. Higher rates mean higher costs. The spiral accelerates. Second, the Fed gets trapped. Raise rates to fight inflation. Government interest costs explode. Keep rates low. Inflation stays high. There's no good option. They're stuck. Third, a crisis hits. Recession, war, pandemic, and we need to borrow trillions more. But the credit limit is maxed. That's when panic starts. I've studied every sovereign debt crisis. Germany in the 1920s, Argentina, Greece. They all follow the same pattern: denial, deterioration, collapse. And the middle class always gets destroyed. People who saved, planned, trusted the system. Now, I'm not saying America collapses tomorrow. We're still the strongest economy. The dollar is still the reserve currency. But advantages can be squandered. And we're squandering ours fast. This debt affects everything. Whether you can retire, whether your kids go to college, the value of your home, your salary. When $1 trillion goes to interest, that's $1 trillion not going to anything productive. Here's a real example. There's a dam in California that engineers say could fail. Repair cost, $200 million, but there's no budget. Why? Because we're paying interest on debt from the 1980s. So the dam stays broken. And if it fails, people die. That's the real cost. Some economists will say I'm wrong. Modern monetary theory. Folks claim debt doesn't matter if you print your own currency. They point to Japan, 250% debt to GDP. Here's my response. Japan is not a success story. Zero growth for 30 years. Young people with no hope, stagnant wages. That's not a model to copy. And Japan has domestic savers buying their debt. America doesn't save. We consume. We need foreign creditors. That's fragile. Plus, the yen isn't the reserve currency. If confidence in the dollar breaks, the entire global system shakes. The stakes are infinitely higher. So here we are. December 2025. $36.2 trillion in debt. $1 trillion a year in interest. No plan. Both parties pointing fingers. Clock ticking. This is a crossroads. Now let me tell you what needs to happen and what you can do. First, Washington needs spending discipline. Real cuts, not promises to slow the growth. Cut Pentagon waste. Cut corporate welfare. Cut fraud. Actually balance the budget. Second, tax reform. Close loopholes. Make sure billionaires like me pay a fair rate. I pay less than my secretary. That's absurd. Third, entitlement reform. Social Security and Medicare need fixes. Means test for wealthy people. Raise the income cap on payroll taxes. Adjust retirement age gradually. It's politically hard but mathematically necessary. Fourth, grow the economy. If GDP grows faster than debt, the ratio improves. Invest in infrastructure, education, technology, things that generate real returns. Fifth, elect leaders with courage. People who tell the truth even when it's unpopular. They're rare, but they exist. Now, what can you do? Because you're thinking, Warren, I can't fix Washington. True, but you can protect yourself. Here are your 5 action steps. 1. Don't count on Social Security. Plan as if it's cut by 25%. Save more, work longer. Build a bigger cushion. I'm serious. Assume it won't be there. 2. Diversify your assets. Own stocks in great companies. Things people need in good times and bad. Own some treasury bonds for safety. Own real estate if you can afford it. Own a little gold as insurance against dollar collapse. Spread your risk. 3. Eliminate personal debt. If you have high-interest credit cards, pay them off now. If rates rise, that debt gets more expensive. Don't let your household mirror the federal government. 4. Build 6 to 12 months of cash reserves. I know that's hard, but when the crisis hits, cash is king. You don't want to sell stocks at the bottom because you need rent money. 5. Invest in yourself. Learn skills that stay valuable in a downturn. Healthcare, technology, essential services. Make yourself indispensable. The best investment is always in your own earning power. And here's a bonus. Vote with your wallet. Support politicians who actually try to fix this. Both parties are guilty. Hold them all accountable. This isn't left versus right. This is math. It's not too late, but the window is closing fast. Every year we delay makes the problem exponentially worse. Every trillion we add makes the crash more severe. If this analysis helped you understand the real situation, not the sugar-coated headlines, but the actual mathematics of what's coming, I'd appreciate a like. It helps get this in front of people who need to hear it. I'll leave you with this. In investing, my first rule is never lose money. Rule 2. Never forget Rule 1. America is breaking both rules. We're losing $1 trillion a year on interest, and we're forgetting that math always wins. We're the richest country in history. We have every advantage. We can fix this, but only if we face reality. Only if we demand action. Only if we stop pretending this debt doesn't matter. The $36 trillion crisis is here. The consequences are coming. The only question is, will you be ready? Protect yourself, protect your family, and demand better from Washington. Thank you.